All right, check. Hello, everyone. I messed up and didn't turn on my mic. So let me retweet out this link and get it going. New link for the September NPD live chat. Hop in. So we're going to start talking in the chat in just a second. All right, how goes it, everyone? Sorry, I'm retweeting the link out. I had forgotten to turn on my mic whenever I first tweeted out the link. So, gotta love that. And the way YouTube works, I had to basically restart the stream. So, I'm just retweeting this link out. All right. We're about to get chatting. Sorry, everyone, for the delay. I'm just retweeting the link out. Okay. If you have any questions about NPD, now's a good time to start dropping those in the chat. Hello. What's up, Dark Detective? All right. Sorry about that, everyone. Retweeted the link out. We should be good to go. We should be good to get this chat going. There's actually a lot to talk about, a whole bunch. Whole bunch. We had some very interesting results, in my opinion. Okay. All right. So first, let's just really quick go over the top 20. I'm just going to list them all out here really quick for you. If you have any questions, any comments about any of these results, start dropping them in chat. Let's do NPD first, but then at the end of it, if there's anything else that you want to talk about, for example, all the crazy Blizzard stuff that just happened, the U.S. government senators kind of putting Blizzard and Activision on blast, that's pretty crazy. We've got a whole bunch of previews for Star Wars Fallen Jedi, so that's very interesting. They're incredibly positive, so we can talk a little bit about sales expectations on that if you want. Really, whatever, this is your chat. Whatever y'all want to talk about, we're here to talk about it. But first, let's talk NPD, because that's really the big thing, right? That's the big thing that just got going. All right. So your number one best-selling game of the month was NBA2K20, which also, broke records. It was the largest launch not only for the NBA franchise ever, but it was also your largest launch ever for a sports game, period, ever tracked by the NPD group. So that's crazy. Second was Borderlands 3, which also broke a record. It was the best launch ever for a Borderlands game. And that's incredibly impressive because no PC sales were tracked for Borderlands 3, none, because it's on the Epic Game Store. And as of now, at least, no Epic Game Store sales are reported to the NPD group. So the fact that it was able to set a franchise record completely without PC sales tracked, and Borderlands is typically a franchise that is very, very strong on PC, usually very, very strong sales there. So for it to break the record without that, that's very impressive. Number 3 is FIFA 20, which is, impressive as well. FIFA continues to grow in the U.S. Number 4, you got Link's Awakening. It's an amazing debut. It's going to be the most largest launch ever for a top-down Zelda game in units, and that's without digital. So that's incredibly impressive there. Number 5, we've got Madden 20. Still holding on strong. Number 6, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. It doesn't have huge sales volume from what it appears, but it also only had 2 days of tracking. So it's really hard to draw a conclusion yet on how Ghost Recon's doing. It's just a little tough because we only have 2 days of tracking. We'll know much more how Ghost Recon's doing next month. Let's see where it places next month. Now, granted, don't expect Ghost Recon to be like super high next month because, you're going to have Call of Duty at the top of the list. You're going to have some other games too, but I would say if Ghost Recon ranks decently high next month in October, then things are probably looking good for it. But hard to really gauge how it did this month since only 2 days were tracked. So kind of a tough call. Number 7, Gears 5. We'll have a lot to talk about that in just a minute. We'll break down Gears in a second. Number 8, Code Vein. This is a pleasant surprise, making your top 10 in a stacked month, right? September wasn't some like low key, only a couple new releases month. It was a stacked month. So for Code Vein to reach your top 10 and actually not just like bottom top 10, it's number 8. That's a good result, I think. Very, very good for Code Vein. Number 9, we had NHL 20. Number 10, Mario Kart 8. Number 11 is Minecraft. Game is still just chugging along. Same with Mario Kart. Really, these next ones, I'll go over them really fast because these are mostly leggy games, not really new releases. Number 12, Grand Theft Auto 5, 13, Super Smash Brothers, 14, Spyro, 15, Red Dead 2, 16, Rainbow Six Siege, 17, a new entry, Plants vs. Zombies, Battle for Neighborville. And that's actually, I think, a pretty good result because this was only the early access edition, right? The regular game release had not come out in September tracking. It was just early access. So I think for it to make your top 20 is actually pretty good. I wasn't sure you would see that game chart at all being early access. So I think that's probably a pretty good result for it. 18 Spider-Man, 19 Catherine, and 20 Zelda Breath of the Wild. Okay, that was your top 20. I just wanted to get those, right off the bat knocked out. Let's start jumping into your questions. Let's start jumping into your comments. Drop them in the chat. If there's anything about this NPD stuff you want to discuss, it is your chat. All right, we got Dark Detective here. Hello, how's it going? Isma and Wound Up Penguin. Okay, here we go. First question. Dark Detective, what is your reaction to the top 5 of the month and its particular order? Okay, so number 1 and 2 basically are exactly what I expected in terms of predictions. I figured NBA would be your number 1 seller. Borderlands still is massive. It's a fantastic result, but I mean, NBA is just a juggernaut. So, I had a feeling NBA would top it. Almost any other month, Borderlands would be your best selling in terms of the number of units it put up, but it just went up against a beast in NBA. So it's really hard to beat NBA. So those two, right where I expected. FIFA is actually, I think, a little bit higher than I expected. It came out kind of late in the month, so I definitely thought it was going to make your top 10, and I thought top 5 was even, likely. But for it to place number 3, I thought maybe it was going to be like 5, 6, something like that. So I think that's very good results. Actually, a little bit higher than what I thought for FIFA. Link's Awakening is kind of right where I thought it'd be. I thought it might be able to get to number 3, but FIFA just ended up being too strong for it. Here, I'm going to turn my mic up a little bit. But yeah, FIFA just ended up being too strong for it. So I think that's a great result for Zelda. And then Madden at number 5 is just, crazy legs. Madden just keeps on selling and selling like an absolute beast. So yeah, that's kind of my reaction to the top 5. Mostly expected. The only thing really that kind of caught me off guard was Link's Awakening and FIFA. I thought those two might have been flopped. I thought you would have had Link's Awakening and then like FIFA. But other than that, pretty much what I expected. All right. Call of Duty Hub. Hate to be that guy, but what does NPD? All right. Dark Detective answered that. Awesome. Exile End. Here it is. Catboy stream. Yeah, absolutely. Catboy, baby. Vincenzo here. Hi, Benji. Nice predictions. Not bad. Thank you, Vincenzo. Yeah, everything that I publicly predicted, I got right this month. So that's always encouraging. It's not going to happen every month by any means. There's going to be months where I get stuff way wrong. I get stuff, right on correct. So I definitely will pat myself on the back whenever I get them right. So thank you, Vincenzo. This was a very good month for me in terms of my predictions. Very, very good. I can't download Call of Duty because it's too big in size. Yeah, that game is massive. Crazy. All right, Dark Detective. I'm surprised by NBA2K20 breaking franchise records plus FIFA 20 charting above Link's Awakening. Yeah, Dark. Yep, that's what I was just saying. Plus Madden 20 in the top 5 in its 3rd month. Yeah, so sports games are on fire, right? Like, I know it's not necessarily one of the most fun things to talk about in terms of sales, right? A lot of the time, we want to talk about the big shooters. We want to talk about the big RPGs, the big role-playing games. We want to talk about these kind of things. And oftentimes, a lot of the sales discussion doesn't talk about sports because it's not juicy. It's not exciting. But yeah, the sports games are just on fire, man. Madden, FIFA, just fantastic performances, and NBA. Yeah, it is crazy how good sports games are doing this year. And then, like you said, yeah, I agree with you, Dark. FIFA and Link surprised me. I thought those two would be flip-flopped, but I mean, Link still did. So I don't want people to think that like Link's Awakening underperformed what I thought. It's actually pretty much right, exactly in the range that I was expecting. I thought anywhere between. Actually, I can't go into it. Never mind. I'm gonna stop what I was saying there, but it's right about where I thought range-wise for Zelda. FIFA just did better than I thought. Okay. Z-Dark here. What up, Z-Dark? What are your thoughts on Dragon Quest XI S and its non-appearance on NPD Top 20? It seems rather poor, unfortunately. It had 9 days or so tracked, so not like it didn't have enough weeks like Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Good question. Dragon Quest XI is actually, of course, like always, I can't go into units or anything like that. Just literally cannot do it. It is around, actually, how it performed is kind of around where I expected, a little bit lower volume than what I thought it was going to do. But it's close to what I thought. And that's mostly because, I hate to say it, but the US just doesn't really care about Dragon Quest. Like, I hate to say it, but like none of them recently, I should say, really sell all that strong, I know on the PS4 and PC, Dragon Quest XI did decent, but it still wasn't like a huge seller. The US market just is not crazy about Dragon Quest. So I don't think it did take, I saw the reset era thread or reset or however you say it. And that was basically like 90% of the discussion was just all about Dragon Quest. That to me is one of the more non-interesting things about this month, because I never thought it was going to be a huge seller anyways. But a lot of people are really passionate about it. So I don't think it's not like shocking to me how that game performed. That's kind of what I was expecting. It's a late port. So, it came out on PS4 and PC a long time ago. And then B, it's a late port for a franchise that's typically fairly niche in the US anyway. So I never thought it was going to be like a huge breakout seller. So yeah, I don't think it's something to like freak out about, to be honest with you. Marco plays. Code Vein at 8th is quite surprising. I agree, Marco. I agree with that. Considering how high the concurrent player was on Steam, I believe PC sales contributed a lot more than expected. Marco, I think you're right on. I agree with you. I have a feeling one of the reasons it's placed as high as it has is because PC seemed like the PC user base really got behind that game. But I agree with you. I think the surprise there, it hitting as high as it did, is a big thanks to the PC user base. Wound Up Penguin, why has NPD not released the hardware sales placements? Matt Piscatella said that year over year Switch had growth, but PS4 fell. So where was Xbox, second or third? Did Gears 5 Game Pass push units? I'll go ahead and say the placement. I don't think that's anything controversial. If they're not going to say it, I'll say it. Xbox was third. I'm not going to give you any kind of units like that. All that's embargoed and everything like that. But I mean, yeah, Xbox was third, PS4 was second. In terms of unit sales, yeah, I can't go into much on that. It's a bummer, but that's how it works. So I can't give you any kind of gauge on units. All I'll say is that Switch did awesome, did excellent, really, really strong. Not quite as high as some people were predicting. I will say that some people were expecting it to be a little bit stronger than it ended up being. But it's still a great result. It's in the range that I was expecting for it. And then PS4 drop is colossal, but that's expected because, last year's comp is Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man released this month last year. Bundles for that sold good. The game itself was a monster, so it pushed a lot of hardware. So yeah, it's for hardware, the only really things worth noting, PS4 is way, 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 way down. And Switch is way, 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 way up. Lite definitely contributed, kind of like how I've been talking about on Twitter. Lite just seems to be expanding the Switch user base and not cannibalizing the OG Switch at all. OG Switch continues to, truck along just fine. Switch Lite isn't eating into its sales. So overall, I think it's definitely a success what Switch Lite has done on the market. It hasn't been like an explosion out of the gate. I think some people thought a $199 Switch, man, this thing is going to light charts on fire. It's going to go nuclear right off the bat. Hasn't quite done that, but it has sold well. I think if you see Switch Lite blow up, it'll be in November and December when we get into that gift giving season. And a lot of gift givers, are looking for deals. They're trying to get as cheap and as low an entry point as possible. If Switch Lite does truly like blow up, November and December would be when I expect that. Not necessarily, September and October, but it did well. It was a good launch. Okay. Mr. Boo, EA and Take-Two should shoot puppies in FIFA and NBA would still sell millions. Okay, that is a funny comment, Mr. Boo. And you're basically right. I don't play the sports games, but I have heard that NBA is not exactly fantastic this year. And it still breaks records. So it would seem that, yes, games like FIFA and NBA are almost bulletproof. It's crazy how diehard the fan base is behind those. I can't speak to it myself. Like I said, I haven't played FIFA, I haven't played NBA. That's just what I've heard is that NBA has some issues this year. But you know what? Didn't stop sales at all. Exile End, I'm really happy on the Fallen Order amazing previews. Like, dude, Exile, I agree. So EA is expecting 6 to 8 million sales for that game by March. That's their expectation, 6 to 8 million. Somewhere in that range by the end of the fiscal year is what EA wants Jedi Fallen Order to sell. And that might sound like a lot, right? That's a big game, 6 to 8 million. Make no mistake, that's a big game. But I actually think now, if the reviews, like if the actual final game is as good as what the previews are saying, I actually think it's going to be more on the high end of that range, right? I actually think 6 million is a bit of a low ball for how big that game can be. Don't forget, Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was plagued in controversy and issues, that game shipped right off the bat, in its first quarter. It shipped 7 million units, if I'm remembering correctly. So if that shipped 7, Battlefront 2, with all of the controversy and issues, if Fallen Order is as good as these previews are, because the vast majority of the previews were just glowing. They were just praising the game. There was a few little nitpicks here and there, but in general, by preview standards, it was previewing through the roof. So if the final game is that good, 6 million, I think, is easy. And I think it could end up doing, closer to that 8 million. I think it could go that high. So we'll see. Hopefully the actual game's as good as what press got to play, in this snippet. They didn't play the whole game, and they just played, part of it. But if that's indicative of the final quality, Fallen Order should be massive this holiday. It should be really, really big. And I like seeing licensed games that are really good, right? There's so many licensed games that so often just we know are not good. They're rushed out the door. But Spider-Man, was this fantastic game based on a licensed IP, the Batman Arkham series. So it's nice that we might get a really good licensed Star Wars game. That would be awesome. All right. Where are we at next? Dark Detective, Dragon Quest XI S outside the general top 20 and ending up right above Astral Chain. The Switch only chart is not as good as I personally hoped for. Yeah, it's not a great result. It's definitely not, Dark. I don't want to frame it like Dragon Quest XI did like good, because it didn't really. I just didn't have like super high expectations for it anyways. So that's why I'm kind of just like, whatever about it, because it wasn't one of these games that like caught me off guard. Like I was expecting some kind of crazy big result and it came in like way below. It was a game I never felt was going to be a huge seller. So it just didn't, really flag for me. But definitely, if you were someone that was really watching that, and not just you, Dark, but anybody, if you were really wanting that game to do well, yeah, that would be a bummer. That would be a bummer to see that. I just wasn't personally, as invested in it because I didn't expect a huge result anyways. Isma, Black Friday rumor. I'm not sure what the rumor is. You might have posted it further down in the chat. I'll check it in just a second. Nixie, the previews of Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion have been positive. Yeah, definitely. Especially the previews of Luigi's Mansion. Yep. How are pre-orders going? Okay. I haven't actually seen much on either game in terms of pre-order numbers. I haven't really asked about it. So I will get back to you on that. I'll try and kind of look into that a little bit more. I'll be honest, I've been keeping my eye more on some of the big PlayStation and Xbox games lately on pre-orders. I've been kind of keeping my eye on stuff like Death Stranding and things like that. I have not delved as deep into the Nintendo stuff, but I expect Luigi's Mansion to do really good. So it should be big. Pokemon, of course, is going to be massive, but I think people are underestimating how big Luigi's Mansion is going to be. DMV fan, I told y'all Respawn at least has to win Studio of the Year for that in Apex. You know, that's a great point, DMV fan. If Fallen Order is as good as it looks, you know, Respawn probably is, you know, your Studio of the Year. Who else would you really put in front of them that had multiple really good projects, right? Because between that and Apex, you know, did really, really well for them. It's mostly viewed as the very, you know, updates haven't been quite as often, you know, I think as some people want. But either way, if Fallen Order is a really high caliber game, you know, Respawn probably is your front runner, because even if there's, let's say Fallen Order is not game of the year, but it's just a really good game, right? Like, let's say it's an awesome game. You know, you might not necessarily, there might be a studio that put out a better game this year, but in terms of two really good ones, I'm not talking about a publisher, right? I'm talking about a studio. Yeah, you know, they're definitely up there for Studio of the Year. I would agree with that. All right, so here is the rumor from Isma for Black Friday. PS4 at $149. Whoa, really? Pro at $299, Xbox SAD, Minecraft, Sea of Thieves, Forza Horizon 3 at $149, Switch at $199, Lite at $149. How do you? Whoa, Isma, where is this rumor coming from? Is this reliable? Because if this is reliable, holy, excuse me, I don't like much, so I'll go hell. That's not too bad of one, right? Holy hell. If PS4 is really $149, it is going to go nuclear. Whoa, that is insane. Deal is less impressive. It's still good, but edition. So, you know, it's the all digital one. Switch at $199 seems crazy to me. Lite getting price dropped already seems crazy to me. If this is accurate, wow. Yeah, Black Friday is going to be insane. Like if this is all legit, Black Friday is going to be pure madness in the US. Whoa. I'm going to have to look into that. I don't know if that's a reliable rumor or not. That's lower than I would have expected. I thought Xbox would go that low, 149 to 179, but I did not expect PS4 or Switch to go that low at all. Mr. Boo, do you think companies are going to be distancing themselves from Activision Blizzard like Nintendo, kind of just not talking about Overwatch? Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Seems like they really want to be pushing that game. Yeah, that was kind of, man, Nintendo seemed to back off that quick, right? They were definitely marketing Overwatch. It was in, you know, a direct and everything. And then that game came out and they basically just didn't say a word about it. And you just saw today, U.S. senators, a bipartisan letter by Democrats and Republicans, bipartisan, both, just wrote a letter to Bobby Kotick, you know, CEO of Activision, basically a scathing letter. I mean, seriously, by like government terms, this thing is pretty scathing. They outright basically call them out on what's going on with China. They straight up say that consumers that boycott their products are in the right to do it. Wow, this is not the kind of heat you want as a publisher. I can tell you that. This is one of the currently one, you know, I tweeted this. This is one of the biggest PR nightmares I've seen in a long time. Here, I'm going to move that a little bit. There we go. A little bit more centered. But yeah, this is one of the biggest PR nightmares I've seen for a publisher in a very, very long time. The next most recent one might have been Battlefront 2 for EA. And this is worse. You know, this is worse. I could be forgetting something. There probably was something worse than Battlefront 2, you know, in between then. But that's kind of one that pops out in my mind was really bad. And This is worse for sure. This is bad. When you have the government itself writing you letters chastising you, that's not where you want to be. That is not where you want to be. So yeah, that's yikes. That is a definite yikes. All right. Dom Don, hello. Do you expect PS4 at all be number one again this year in hardware sales? No, I do not, Dom Don. I don't think PS4 will be number one, maybe ever again this generation. Might be done. And that's not a diss on PlayStation. It's just it's really old now. It might happen. Its best bet is going to be like The Last of Us Part 2 month. If they have a strong bundle for that. But even let's say if you looked in, I believe it was August is when PS4 had a price cut, it still didn't pass Switch. So even with a price drop, now granted, it wasn't $100 price drop or anything like that. It went down to $249, so it dropped $50. But even still, that was the first price cut it had in a long time, and it still didn't pass Switch. So I find it unlikely that happen, but not impossible. It definitely can. Its best bets are going to be like, if this one rumor is real, I mean, who knows? That throws a wrench in things for November because PS4 has literally never been that cheap. But I would rate it as unlikely, but not impossible. I definitely think you see Switch basically win almost every month until PlayStation 5 and Scarlet come out. Just because, A, it's a successful system, and B, it's just a lot newer. PlayStation, has been on the market for so long that while it definitely still can sell units, it's mostly sold to the majority of consumers it's going to. All right. Z-Dark here. Are the Lite and OG Switch still selling as complementary systems? Yes, without one eating into the other's market share. Absolutely, Z-Dark. That's exactly what's happening. Hasn't impacted OG Switch at all. You're not seeing OG Switch on a weekly or monthly basis diving down in sales. It's holding on just as strong basically as ever, and the Lite is just adding to that. So yes, that's the good news for Nintendo. While Lite hasn't been a juggernaut launch right off the bat, while it hasn't sold 1 billion units in its very first month, what it is doing is expanding the market share without eating into OG Switch. That's good news for them. That pegs, very promising news for this holiday, because look at how massive the Switch was last November and December, right? It was really, really big, had a fantastic result. And that, if it's not going to go down at all, right? If OG Switch is going to put up the kind of numbers it did last holiday and Lite's going to add on to that, then whoa, yeah, this November and December could be absolutely enormous for Switch. So yes, Z-Dark, they're complementary, not eating into each other. Good news. Iacona23, is 2020 going to be a down year for Nintendo because of a weaker game release? Ooh, interesting question. Weaker game release lineup and declining Switch hardware sales due to consumers saving for PS5 and new Xbox. That is a great question, Iacona. Tough to say right now. I do agree that as of now, besides Animal Crossing, which will be huge, early next year looks pretty light for Switch. Whereas this holiday, is looking amazing. You got Luigi's Mansion. Really, this year, like the first half of this year was slow, but the second half of this year, once you started hitting Super Mario Maker 2 and Fire Emblem and Astral Chain, Luigi's Mansion, Pokemon, Link's Awakening, so many good games in the second half of this year. You could see that again next year. We don't really know what their lineup is for next year. Right now, it looks like, because we only really know of Animal Crossing for sure out of mega games. So it's a good question. Definitely next holiday. I don't expect, Switch to necessarily be as strong as it's going to be this holiday. It's the first holiday with the Lite. I don't know if next year, and plus next year, like you said, you're going to have PS5 and Scarlet on the market. So I don't know that Switch will hit the holiday sales numbers it hits this year. It might, I don't know. It's so far out, it's hard to forecast, but it's a good question. It's a good question. My answer, my cop-out answer to that is it's a little bit too early to say for sure. Wound Up Penguin, what are your feelings about how the Outer Worlds will perform given its day one in Game Pass, but also for sales on PS4, PC, and Xbox? Yeah, this is a good question. We can kind of go into Gears 5 on this as well, right? This is a good time to talk about Gears. So Gears 5 did what I was talking about, I thought it was going to do right around release. And that is, this is the first case that we absolutely have seen Game Pass cannibalize sales. 100%. This is the first prime example that we've ever seen of it. So that is going to be very watch over the coming months, years, how Game Pass games do, because there is zero question Game Pass affected Gears 5's performance. I don't consider Gears 5's sales necessarily like a disaster whenever you factor in Game Pass, but make no mistake, it is not performing how older Gears games did. But again, it's hard to make a comparison. Here's the thing. We don't know, and it's just a fact, like we don't know. Hard to talk. We don't know how Microsoft feels about the game because it is also clear that Gears 5 pushed some serious Game Pass numbers. Like there's no doubt. It pushed some serious Game Pass subscription numbers. So is Microsoft okay, taking that hit on full price sales to get those subscribers in the door? It's just a tough question. It's hard to say for sure. And in terms of the Outer Worlds, I have a feeling that game's going to do pretty well on PC. It seems like a game that really will appeal to the PC user base. And I think it'll do okay on console. I don't expect this game to be like any kind of juggernaut, massive launch, huge seller. I think it's going to do probably pretty all right for itself. I don't think you'll see the kind of cannibalization that Gears 5 had. All marketing for Gears was basically, this is a Game Pass game. Like everything, every single advertisement you saw for it, every billboard, every poster, every trailer just was plastered. Game Pass Ultimate, Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass. Whereas Outer Worlds, while it definitely does have some of that, to me hasn't been marketed near as heavily as a Game Pass game. So I think, yes, it being on PC, PS4, I expect a good result for Outer Worlds, but nothing crazy. And I don't think cannibalization will be as bad as Gears 5 was. Does that answer your question? I hope it does. All right. Where are we at? Exile End. My guess is February 21st, 2020 for big PS5 reveal. Good question. More than likely, it's going to be February, early February, March. I doubt they push that to April or May. That seems a little late. It's definitely going to be before E3. Zero question about that. So I would agree with you, Exile. February, maybe March, but February is my gut instinct too. I agree. Wound Up Penguin. I'm getting some buffering. Ooh. Can everyone see me right now? Hopefully you can see me. Can you just drop a comment and let me know if we're buffering really bad or if the stream's okay? Mr. Boo, I wouldn't doubt Animal Crossing Iacona. It probably carried the first half easily. Yeah, Animal Crossing is going to be a monster. It's going to be huge, so nothing too much to worry about. Dark Detective. Last year, October was a big month. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was #1 and even outsold Red Dead Redemption 2. Is it safe to say that the launch of Call of Duty Modern Warfare will be down? Actually, I don't think so, Dark. I think Call of Duty Modern Warfare is going to be the biggest launch ever for a Call of Duty game, or at least this gen. It's buffering pixelated. Gosh, dang it. I got to do something about that. I got to move my computer upstairs, I think. Like, that's the problem. The problem is that I'm in my basement, and I even got a Wi-Fi range extender, and it did not fix my problems. So, yeah, it's a bummer. I think I have to move my computer upstairs. I really think so, which is a bummer. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure that out. But anyways, Dark, I don't think it's gonna be down. I think Modern Warfare is gonna be the biggest launch ever for a Call of Duty game this gen. Z-Dark, do you happen to have any impressions for how Witcher 3 on Switch is performing? The U.S. government approved port of the week. I actually have no info on that. I can't go into why, but I don't. I'm sorry. I have no info on Witcher 3 on Switch. None. Sorry. There's a blind spot for me with that. All right, where are we at? Wound Up. Which will sell more in your opinion? Call of Duty, Pokemon, or Star Wars? I know Pokemon is counted as two separate SKUs, but imagine they are combined. Even if Pokemon was Call of Duty is going to be the biggest. I think Call of Duty is going to be the biggest Call of Duty this generation. I think it's going to be the biggest launch of this year. And I think it's going to be the best selling game of this year. All of that added up, Modern Warfare is tracking to be an absolute freaking monster. Monster. Like big, big, big. But make no mistake, Pokemon's going to be huge, and then Star Wars is going to be big. My guess, if I had to rank those three, Call of Duty number 1, combined Pokemon, if you put them together, number 2, and then Star Wars number 3 out of those. Brubby, hey Benji, how you doing? I'm doing good, Brubby or Brooby. How are you? Thanks for coming to the chat. Icona, thanks, Benji. Oh, of course. Of course. Always happy to answer your questions. Brooby, holy shit, have you seen Black Friday deals at Walmart? Yeah, I just saw that rumor. That's pure insanity. That's pure insanity. I'm probably going to be tweeting about that as soon as I get done with this chat because it's insane. So that's a Walmart ad? So that's like confirmed? Jesus. It's time to everyone who is forecasting holiday sales, everyone, Matt Piscatella, every single person that does these sales things, everyone who is forecasting it that just saw that, if that's legit, we're all revising our forecast. Like all of us, we're going to revise because all those prices are absurd. They're insanity. Icona, thanks, Mr. Boo. The first half of the year may be okay. It's the second half which may drop off. Yeah, Icona, that's going to be what's interesting. Hybrid, Outer Worlds is on Epic Games. Ooh, and not Steam. Will that affect it? Interesting. I actually forgot that was an Epic Games Store game. It will affect it in NPD because it'll have 0 tracking. Won't be tracked at all. So, period. None of its PC sales will be tracked on NPD. Same thing happened to Control. Same thing happened to Borderlands 3. So it's absolutely going to affect its NPD performance. In terms of total sales, not really. Every piece of data I have seen has not shown any indication really that Epic Game Store harms sales. I know some people are not going to like to hear that, but at large, I have not seen any data that points to that. A little bit maybe, but in general, games don't seem to suffer by going to Epic Game Store. So it will affect NPD, but I don't think it affects its total units much. Wound up, it's buffering, pixelated. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to move my computer upstairs. I don't really have a choice now because it just keeps happening. Ramses, given how well full remakes have done this generation, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Resident Evil 2, excellent points. Do you think that trend will continue into next gen? If so, do you have any predictions? Yes. Good question, Ramses. And yes, I think you're going to keep seeing this happening now. You're seeing, this has been common in movies and TV for a long time. It hasn't happened in games so much. You've seen like HD remasters where it's basically the same game, but they just, up-res it. You have seen things like that, but full-on remakes haven't been that common, like a full-scale remake until somewhat recently. But this has long been tradition in movies and TV where people will just remake movies, right? They'll different cast, different actors. They'll change some stuff up, but they'll basically remake a film. They'll remake TV shows all the time. TV shows come back. Ones that were in the UK will get a US version, vice versa. It's always been around. And as you noted, you're seeing these remakes, not these just HD remasters. These full-on remakes sell excellent. So I do think you're going to see people, studios revisiting that more. And I'm all for it. Resident Evil 2 Remake is probably the second best game I've played this year. Control is my game of the year, but I think Resident Evil 2 is second to it. So I do think you'll continue to see that. We'll go for we're at 38 minutes. We'll go till 45 minutes. So we'll just go for another, 7 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap the chat up. Wound Up Penguin, can you try a really long Ethernet cable? Ooh, I could drill a hole through my ceiling probably and run the cable down. That is one way. I don't want to drill a hole really through my floor, but I could. Good point. Icona 23. My guess is Nintendo has some Mario-shaped card up its sleeve. Interesting. Yeah, we could see a new Mario. It's definitely possible, right? Odyssey came out in 2017. So, I mean, 2020 definitely could have a new Mario. That'd be 3 years. So that's actually a good point. We very well could see a new Mario next year. Not for sure, but we might. It would be a 3-year dev cycle if so, because they released no Odyssey DLC. There was no DLC for Odyssey, so they absolutely could, have a Mario game next year. Icona, right? Mr. Boo, Nintendo also stated they wanted a Zelda game released every year, either brand new, or remake. Makes sense. Zelda's on fire right now. Benji, what's up, Benji? Do you think Diablo 4, I think it's safe to say, will happen? Sales could be impacted by the Hong Kong controversy. Weren't Battlefront 2 sales affected by the loot box fiasco? Yes, they were, Benji. So Battlefront 2 was one of the best examples you'll ever see that sometimes controversy that you see on the internet does carry over into the actual market as well. So this is not always the case, right? One example, I think, of a game that isn't going to suffer from online controversy is Pokemon Sword and Shield. So you see a lot of controversy online about the Pokedex, people very upset about that. And I think it will have almost no effect on sales, almost none. I think I'm not saying it's unjustified people are mad about it, but I think it's mostly like an internet thing. I don't think that carries over into the audience that much. But the Battlefront 2 controversy did. That is one that the loot boxes directly affected sales. Make no mistake about it. EA themselves even admitted it. Like EA themselves, a publisher usually does not want to admit mistakes, right? You just generally don't want to put that kind of PR out there like, oh yeah, we messed up. And EA basically flat out admitted that the loot box controversy around that game affected sales. Diablo 4 is still going to be huge, but a lot of people feel upset at Blizzard in general right now. This isn't even just a Hong Kong thing. It's been going on for the last few years. You saw BlizzCon last year, which was an unmitigated disaster. I'm not talking about in terms of announcements, like how I feel personally. I'm saying like the way the Blizzard fan base reacted to that. I mean, it can't be framed as anything but a disaster. It really was. People have just been upset with them for a while for various reasons. And now you have this Hong Kong incident, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Blizzard does, in the future with their coming games, because definitely it feels like their fan base is very upset with them in general. So I don't want to say for sure the Hong Kong controversy is definitely going to hurt them, but it definitely might. Like it for sure could. Benji, do you think it would be better for Nintendo to release Breath of the Wild 2 for the Switch Pro or alongside the next gen launch? Do we know if a Switch Pro is actually happening anymore? There was rumors about that. I even commented on them like last year. I had even said, and early this year, I had even said I'd heard rumors about it because I had, but then nothing panned out on it. So I don't know if that was all just noise. Like it was just rumors in the ether that somehow got made up somewhere and spread around. Like a lot of people were talking about it. It wasn't just like one or two. A lot of people were talking about that. So sometimes these fake rumors gain a lot of traction. I don't know. I just don't know. If there is a Switch Pro, then, Breath of the Wild 2 should definitely be on it. It shouldn't wait. In general, I think it should be on the Switch. So, but as for your question about the Pro, I just don't know if that's a thing or not. Denzel Martin, how is Witcher 3 and Overwatch Switch doing? Okay. Witcher, I have no information for you on. Overwatch at retail, can't comment on digital, but at retail seems meh. Kind of meh. Not very impressive at retail. But keep in mind, the retail packaging is just a DLC code in a box. So, that's not going to have as much demand as if it was actually physically on a cart. So I'm not sure how it's doing in general, but Overwatch retail does not look strong. All right. Exile End. Want to know what is crazy? What I said about February 2020 PS5 reveal and Resident Evil 3 came out in February 2000. Just saying, 20-year anniversary. Yeah, Resident Evil 3 remake is definitely happening. I think we all know that with how Resident Evil 2 remake sold. And spoiler alert, cover your ears if you haven't played Resident Evil 2 remake yet. I'm going to 3, cover your ears. 2, cover your ears. 1, cover your ears. They basically tease Resident Evil 3 remake at the end of Resident Evil 2. So it's definitely going to happen. When? I don't know. Could happen though next year. Never know. Could, but it's definitely gonna happen. Mr. Boo, always a pleasure getting your insight, Benji. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Boo. Always happy to be here. This is like the live chats are basically my favorite thing. Dark Detective, thinking about Game Pass and how it cannibalizes full game sales. Looking forward to Disney Plus results, the first serious Netflix competitor, and how it affects Netflix Game Pass strategy. Yo, Dark, that is a great comment and question. I know we normally talk just about video game sales here, but I'm a nerd. I like to look at, I keep very close attention on the box office for movies as well. And I even keep track of ratings for TV shows because I'm just a nerd about all this stuff. Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to watch, right? How Disney Plus, Netflix crushed its expectations. Anyone that just saw their reporting, they way outperformed expectations. Netflix did. So they're still going strong. You know, a lot of people are thinking Disney Plus is going to eat into Netflix, and they very well might. But I'll tell you what, Netflix is not going to go down without a fight. So, yeah, that will be interesting to watch. Benji, have we ever seen a situation where next-gen consoles will be released when the current top-selling console, Switch in this case, is at its peak? Ooh, that is a great question. At its peak, I don't think we have. Now that you say that, we've had situations where, you know, there was a better selling console on the market, but not at its peak, right? That's a good point. Like this year and next year, theoretically, should be the Switch's peak in terms of sales performance. Generally, how consoles work, the next 2 years should be the Switch at its height. Unless I'm forgetting something, I can't recall a situation where we saw a next-gen platforms released directly during the peak of another console cycle. Not counting only handhelds here. I'm only talking about consoles because the Switch technically is still a home console, even if the Lite makes things weird now. That's a great question, Benji. I don't think so. To answer your question, I don't think so, but I might be forgetting something, but I don't recall. All right, I'll hit these 2 comments here, and then we'll call the chat because we've been going for almost an hour. I don't want to bore you all with this. So I'll do these 2 questions here, and then we'll call the chat, everybody. Sorry, thumbs up is what I meant to do. What do you think about the close release date of The Last of Us Part 2 and Final Fantasy Remake, plus Watch Dogs Legion 3 days after Final Fantasy VII? Do you think they could hurt each other and affect legs? I've talked about this before, Arm Gunner. I don't think The Last of Us Part 2 and Final Fantasy VII will have any sort of negative impact on each other because they're vastly different. They're both huge games. They're both going to have overlap for sure. Like there's definitely going to be people that get both of them, but in general, they are like so different. One's a Japanese JRPG game, and then the other one is this like super serious survival shooter Western game. So they're just so different. I don't think they'll hurt each other much because, you know, if there were 2 of the very, very similar type of games, I do think so, right? Like if Sony was putting out, let's say, Days Gone and The Last of Us Part 2 right next to each other, yeah, you know, that would hurt because there's a lot of similarities. They're different games, but just a lot of similarities. But these 2 are so radically different, I don't think it hurts them. In terms of Watch Dogs, it could, just because it's releasing at a time that there's other just juggernauts on the market. I think Watch Dogs Legion looks good. And if I had to guess, I think it's going to do better than Watch Dogs 2. 2 sold less than Watch Dogs 1, and Legion seems to have a good amount of buzz around it. But I would say, you know, out of the 3 that you mentioned, Watch Dogs is the most in danger there, if that makes sense. It's the most in danger, but I don't think Last of Us and Final Fantasy have any issues. All right, last question here. Mr. Boo, wondering what's going to happen with Stadia next month. Good question. Don't know how we gauge that success. Me neither. I'm sure Google wouldn't admit if it was a failure anyways. Mr. Boo, I'm as lost on this one as you. This is something tricky. It's going to be tricky to gauge. We have no hardware to track. I mean, you can do it through a Chromecast, but is anyone going to be tracking Chromecast sales and how they relate to Stadia? I don't think so. It can be accessed like on any device. So unless Google comes out and gives us a number, right? Like how many people exactly are streaming on their service and how many games they're selling, I hate to say it, it might be almost impossible to know. Like it's, I hate saying that because I'm the guy that wants to be transparent about sales, talk about sales. But Stadia is going to be very hard to gauge, just very hard, because so much of that information is going to be just next to impossible to track. So who knows? Mr. Boo? I'm really not sure. All right. Thanks, everyone, for the chat. Wound up saying thanks. Thank you. Benji saying great stuff. Thank you. Armin, everyone. It's awesome. The chat has been great. Thank you so much, everyone. Here's the part where I got to shill for just like a second. If you could hit the like on the video, it helps the channel out a bunch, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I stream on here usually at least once a week. Sometimes I do 2 streams a week. I've been doing less pre-recorded content nowadays just because I find the streams a lot more engaging than doing the pre-recorded content. Surprisingly, I really like doing the, streaming more than the pre-made stuff. So, I might do pre-made stuff again. I'll see you in the next video. And until next time, see ya.